To many, Superman has become more of a symbol than an actual character, which is disappointing as he's an incredibly compelling character to follow, though this is the natural next step for one of fiction's greatest icons. As for what exactly he has come to represent, a lot of people would tell you it's hope. Hope for a fairer, more tolerant world, one of dignity and honor. Hope for a better tomorrow, and it seems to be what people want out of a Superman story nowadays, as shown by the positive response to the 2025 Superman movie, which follows the titular character as he tries to navigate an increasingly morally grey world. But I think it's easy to get too fixated on this idea, to the extent where the character is flanderized and watered down to little more than a smiling Boy Scout, indicative of people's nostalgia for a simpler time that never really existed. We forget how one inspires hope. We forget that hope is meaningless without action.
A being no larger than an ordinary man, but possessed of powers and abilities never before realized on Earth. Able to leap into the air an eighth of a mile at a single bound, hurdle a 20-story building with ease, race a high-powered bullet to its target, lift tremendous weights and rend solid steel in his bare hands as though it were paper. Superman, a strange visitor from a distant planet, champion of the oppressed, physical marvel extraordinary, who has sworn to devote his existence on Earth to helping those in need.
Superman's first appearance in the first issue of Action Comics depicts him as a true force of nature, tearing down doors, throwing a man across the room before scaring him to the point of collapse, and most notably, destroying a car as people run away in fear. Interestingly, adaptations that pay homage to the latter tend to rewrite this iconic moment by instead showing Kal-El gently place the car back down as civilians watch in awe. In the comic, people are terrified of this guy. Even Lois Lane, known for being fearless, which has always been a core trait of hers, is afraid of him when they first meet. From a surface level point of view, none of this sounds like Superman at all, not the version we know. This guy sounds like a menace, when these moments are taken out of context. When not mentioning the fact Superman tore down a door in a desperate hurry to convince a senator to save an innocent woman from death row, or that the man he tossed around was a domestic abuser simply getting a taste of his own medicine, or that the car Superman destroyed belonged to a group of criminals trying to kidnap Lois, and that Kal-El even reassures Miss Lane upon rescuing her, telling her that he isn't a threat. This being his first appearance means that at the time the character lacked the staples that many have come to associate with the Superman mythos. There was no Fortress of Solitude, there was no Supergirl, there was no Superdog, he couldn't even fly. But in a lot of ways, this is still the Man of Tomorrow at his truest. One man with the strength of thousands, being the change he wants to see in the world. A man who will drag the owner of a mine underground and force him to dig his way out, just so he can experience a fraction of what his workers have suffered in these awful conditions, who will force the government to build better housing for impoverished communities, who will stuff a prison warden's face with the same slop the inmates have been forced to eat. In Superman issue 2, he even forces two warring world leaders to make peace, otherwise he'll bring the building down on both of them. Pretty much saying, stop fighting or I'll kill you. Even though I wish this weren't the case, superheroes constantly run the risk of becoming an enforcer of the status quo. Sending people to prison is only heroic in fiction, not to mention the fact Metropolis has a prison named in reference to a real-life institution that has become infamous for its corruption. I'd be ignorant to pretend my favorite character is exempt from this, especially given the influence that being owned by a corporation has had on him, such as the way Superman, along with many other superheroes, would become a tool for racist pro-American propaganda during the Second World War, and the way the Comics Code Authority made it literally impossible for writers to present anybody in a position of legal authority as antagonistic for years, with Superman being seen as a patriotic symbol ever since, hence the ridiculous amount of backlash from the right wing when the motto went from the American way to a better tomorrow, as well as the response to the release of Action Comics 987, where Superman saves undocumented workers from an armed American. But this perception of Superman is all the more egregious and regressive because of how radical the character was in his original iteration, at least as far as superheroes go. And while certain entities can repeatedly try to sell us a sanitized version, some things are simply baked into the character's DNA. When Superman went from fighting real-life societal ills to fighting mad scientists, alien invaders, and gorillas, one of a few spin-offs from around this time was the Superboy series, which detailed the adventures of Superman when he was a boy, something that, while temporarily rendered non-canon after Crisis on Infinite Earths, was always a part of Jerry Siegel's original vision for the character. At one point, Clark was even supposed to be from the future as opposed to an alien planet, making him a literal man of tomorrow. Both in some way line up with what we know about Superman today, even with the number of concepts introduced by the countless different people to have written the character since then. He's unique in that he doesn't have a pivotal moment in his life that turned him into Superman, aside from the destruction of Krypton, which made it an inevitability. Clark put on a cape the second he got the chance. Heroism wasn't something that was thrust upon him, he just went and did it. A number of DC characters have taken on mantles that have been passed down. Characters like The Flash, Blue Beetle, Black Canary, and Mr. Terrific. Even the title of Superman and Superboy have been shared by different characters at one point or another. But Kal-El once again stands out in that regard. During his Superboy days, he was told of his destiny upon meeting the Legion of Superheroes, a team from the 31st century inspired by him. The impossible legacy Superman strives toward living up to is one he created. Not only did he set the example that all superheroes now follow in real life, but also in universe. Superman is a character that reshapes the universe around him, and there's a confidence he exudes when he does it. A great example would be the Superman and the Legion of Superheroes story arc, about Kal-El revisiting his friends in the 31st century, one riddled with xenophobia, where anybody deemed an alien is imprisoned in a holding camp or murdered, and history has been rewritten to ensure that children grow up to be just as ignorant as the adults. Even aside from the obvious parallels the readers intended to draw when looking at the design of the guy in charge, it's hard not to also compare it to the United States as it's always been, including currently. But even though the story's premise is scarily realistic, its lead is larger than life. Just the sight of the Man of Steel at full power deflecting the police's bullets before knocking the teeth out of the dictator dubbed Earthman is enough to undo the damage caused by all of the propaganda Earth's people have been fed. Both the central conflict and eventual resolution are direct consequences of his existence, an existence defined by his unyielding willingness to act when few else will. Superman may be kind and approachable, but he is the farthest thing from passive. Something that I feel has been forgotten and even ignored by some. Perhaps in response to takes on the character that are nothing but brutish, there has been a change of course too far in the opposite direction when it comes to how people discuss the character. In the case of Superman, we've even seen it in adaptations, even those that are generally agreed to be good portrayals, including by myself, like My Adventures with Superman, where Big Blue is much less of a brawler, a Superman who will apologize before throwing a punch, though the show does have some of the all-time greatest moments in any Superman adaptation.
Are you alright?
I'm fine, but Clark...
I'm okay. Everything's okay.
How did you know you'd be bulletproof?
I didn't. I just knew that you weren't.
From his inception, Superman has always been a power fantasy, just one in which said power is exercised in the name of the powerless, to uplift them. His refusal to kill doesn't mean he won't occasionally take advantage of his potential to be equally terrifying to his enemies as he is comforting to the cats he rescues from trees. In the 6th issue of Superman Birthright, he shoots a racist arms dealer with the guy's own gun, only to catch the bullet as it's inches away from his face. He may represent the best of humanity, sure, but just as many of us sometimes wish somebody would smack the shit out of a rich, entitled son of a bitch, Superman is no better than us in that sense. The difference is that he can smack the shit out of a rich, entitled son of a bitch without repercussion. And if that doesn't work, he doesn't just propose a solution or kindly ask humanity to do better, he shows us a better way. In the words of Ma Kent, Clark, being special's easy for you, but some folks, they go their whole lives never knowing what that's like. So if you can help them to feel that, if you can guide folks to find what's amazing about them, well, that's the power to change the world. She says this during a flashback within an issue that makes up the Warworld saga. It's a story about Superman leaving Earth in the care of his son as he goes to liberate the titular planet from the clutches of the villain Mongol, only to initially be met with resistance from its people, who have been shackled for so long that they see no alternative and feel bonded to their trafficker. The Warworld saga was intended to bring the character back to his roots as the champion of the oppressed, but with a twist. He isn't able to solve this problem in the span of a single issue. When he's hit with the red solar radiation that robs him of his powers, beaten and thrown in a cell, he becomes another one of Warworld's people. He picks up their style of combat and he learns of their history. By showing them that he's flesh and blood, he can earn their trust and successfully lead the uprising against Mongol. Through this, we see the S become a symbol of hope in a tangible way. To them it now represents freedom and revolution. He did more than tell them everything would be okay. He made sure of it. Superman alters the course of history for the better through the things he does, not a hollow gesture. In this way, it reminds me of his words towards the end of Infinite Crisis during his showdown with Superboy Prime. It's not about where you were born, or what powers you have, or what you wear on your chest. It's about what you do. It's about action. I want to make it clear that I still think Superman should be deeply compassionate. He can be a softie and a bit of a dork. He can be vulnerable and human. I just fear that if we lose sight of what truly defines him by making him a non-confrontational, mild-mannered farm boy with a personality that is near indistinguishable from the disguise he wears as the reporter Clark Kent, you have the potential to create a Superman that is as boring as the depictions where he's a blockhead or a stone-faced god, as well as contradict the ethos that informed his creation, because you've made him complacent. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. Grant Morrison, the writer of All-Star Superman, which arguably played one of the largest parts in the Man of Tomorrow's hope-fueled resurgence in recent years, sums up my feelings quite well.
Because a lot of people apply this concept of hope to Superman, and while I appreciate it and I get what they're talking about in this almost Christ-like messianic sense that Superman can sometimes have, Superman doesn't sum up hope. Superman's keyword is action. He didn't appear in Hope comics, he appeared in Action comics. Superman is a physical figure. He moves through the world in a very physical way and he gets shit done. If you're weak, if you're in trouble and somebody's coming to mess you, Superman steps in and punches the guy out. He's not Christ. He doesn't tell you to turn the other cheek. He punches out bullies. And we have to remember that. That's the essential quality of that character, I think. And I think we need that guy, you know. We really need to feel there is someone who will do that.
Dreams, dignity, honor, and justice are great, as well as hope. But what good is hope for a better tomorrow that may never come, because we did nothing to create it?